Here in a few minutes, we're going to be doing communion together. If you haven't had a chance to grab the elements there at the back door, we are excited for you to take communion with us. All are welcome to take it, to take part. And we would love for you to do that. But we've got a little bit of a journey before we get there. And so before we do, I want us to go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, Lord, we thank you today for the opportunity we have to be here. We thank you today for the opportunity to know that we're not here by accident. We thank you to know that you are going to meet us right where we are. Lord, that if we will open our hearts, minds, and spirits, you will minister to us, and not one of us will leave this place with the same way we came in. So, Lord, I ask that you would just let us push aside the things that would distract us, the things that would maybe make us miss the words you would want us to hear. Lord, I ask that you would rush in your presence and your Holy Spirit to take over. Lord, these things we pray. Amen. Today we continue the series that we've been in, The Way Forward. We've been calling The Way Forward 2.0. This is the second portion of a conversation that we have been in, talking about how to move forward when everything in us feels stuck. Everything in us is seemingly surrounded by darkness. We are seemingly stuck in traffic. We're surrounded by fog, and we can't see the way forward. And we spent a lot of time in the conversation Jesus had with his disciples, and then now we've been looking at a guy by the name of Joshua and the Israelites. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a feeling that everyone in this room has had, and it's the feeling of discouragement. We've all felt it. Every one of us sitting in this room has felt discouragement. I mean, we have felt discouraged in our relationships. We've felt discouraged in our careers. We have felt discouraged in our circumstances, in our health, and our finances. We've all been there. The reality is that every one of us sitting in this room, we know this emotion, and some of us are experiencing this emotion even right now. This is what we walked in here feeling. We feel discouraged. And here's the thing. When it comes to talking about feelings, one of the greatest things you can do is define what that feeling is. Discouragement, maybe the best way to break it down is this. Discouragement is the feeling that hope has been lost. You are discouraged. If you are discouraged, you feel there's no hope in the situation. There's no hope in my relationship. There's no hope in my career. No hope in my finances. No hope in my health. No hope in this obstacle, this wall, this battle I've been fighting for months and years. It's just no hope. And you're discouraged. The dictionary says it this way, that discouragement is the loss of confidence and enthusiasm. The prevention and stifling of progression. That's what the dictionary says. It is the loss of enthusiasm, the loss of confidence, it's the loss of hope. And it stifles and prevents our progression. What we've been talking about, this whole thing of moving forward. And so, you hope for something, you hope something was going to happen, you hope something was going to change, but it hasn't changed. You have put in the work, you tried. You've been trying, but it's still not happening. And when something is not happening, and when you're not seeing results, you feel discouraged. I mean, we've all been there. I mean, you try to diet for a day, and you don't lose 10 pounds in a day, so you quit, right? But we say stuff like that, but the reality is it's true. When we don't see results, we get discouraged. We lose hope. Discouragement is a loss of courage. The courage to move forward and progress, to keep moving forward. And this is where we find Joshua, the guy we've been looking at the last few weeks. He's in a place of discouragement, whether you recognize it or not. Many of us would read the scriptures and maybe even miss the fact that Joshua was discouraged. If you haven't been around here over the last several weeks, I'll just make it very simple. We have been talking about now Joshua, at first it's got Caleb and the Israelites, and what's going on with them. And in chapter 1, in the book of Joshua, that's what we're studying, we see that he's discouraged. So I want you to think about it. Think about what he's gone through. You may remember that there was a couple of spies. Joshua was one of them, Caleb was the other. And they went into the promised land to check things out. It was instructed by God. And they bring back this report. There was 12 of them. Joshua and Caleb were 2 of them. And they bring this report back to the people. And they say,
we can do this. We can go into the promised land that God told us that we can go in. And what do the people do? They're like, no, we can't. They listen to the other 10 negative people. That's discouraging. When people don't listen to you, it's discouraging, isn't it? Do you ever get tired of people not listening to you? Don't look at the person next to you. You're going to get in trouble. It gets annoying, doesn't it? You're like, I know what I'm talking about. Just listen to me. I'm trying to help you. It's discouraging when you are trying to help somebody and they're not listening. And he had to go through that. And think about what it cost them. Because they didn't listen to Joshua. They wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. We get upset because we've been wandering for 4 hours or 4 days in our situation. 40 years. Until that entire generation dies off. Can you imagine walking around and he's like, if you would just listen to me. Have you ever looked at somebody in your life and be like, this is your fault? Because you didn't listen. And it's discouraging. It isn't like you're trying to make them feel bad. You feel bad for them. You're hurting because it's like, I'm discouraged because of what we're going through. And so, then Moses dies. Death lost in anyone's life is a tragedy, and it hurts, and it's hard. But in Joshua's situation, this would have been absolutely very discouraging because Moses was the leader. He was the guy who walked into Egypt and confronted Pharaoh. He was the one who had been leading them. And then all of a sudden, he dies. Can you imagine now he dies and you're up to bat? You're now the leader. Following the great Moses. It's like the guy who follows Tom Brady. They don't stand a chance, right? I mean, it's like who took the place of Michael Jordan when he finished. I can't tell you who came in after him at the Chicago Bulls because they didn't have a hope. And it's like he's got to follow Moses. Can you imagine those shoes to fill the superstar? I mean, right before our book, Joshua, at the end of Deuteronomy, look what the Bible says, Deuteronomy 34:12. For no one has ever shown the mighty power or perform the awesome deeds that Moses did in all the sight of Israel. Can you imagine that? That's who you're following. Now, granted, Moses did write the book of Deuteronomy. But I have a feeling that somebody stepped up and said, we got to make sure that's in there. Moses, we got to talk about you a little bit because you're pretty awesome. Here's the thing. This is how we know that Joshua was discouraged. It sums it all up. If all that I just said doesn't convince you, this will. This is how we know that Joshua was discouraged. Because God has to keep reminding him to be courageous. He keeps reminding him, do not be discouraged. God keeps saying, do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Do not be overwhelmed. For I am with you. 4 times in chapter 1. 4 times in the very beginning of this book, God says, don't be discouraged. Don't be dismayed. Be strong. Be courageous. Listen, you don't tell someone over and over and over again something unless they need to hear it. I'm going to say that again. You don't tell someone over and over and over again the same thing unless they need to hear it. I went to get a haircut some time ago. It's been a long time ago since this occurred. And I was sitting in the chair. And as we were finishing up, the lady says, do you want me to do your eyebrows? And I was like, what? Do you want me to do your eyebrows? I thought I was here for a haircut. Now, men, as you know, you come to an age where there's hair on other parts of your head that have to be trimmed. This might be a newsflash. Nobody warned me. Thanks, Dad. You know, other places, you know, that stuff just starts appearing. And at first I was just a little bit bad. What do you mean? Do you want to do my eyebrows? I don't know. The question is, well, why? What do you think? Her response was perfect. We don't ask unless it needs to be done. Here's the thing. The fact is that this is what's happening with Joshua. He doesn't need to hear these words unless he needs it. And I think for so many of us in this room, this is kind of where we are. And this is how we know that Joshua, he needs encouragement. He struggled with discouragement. And God knew that he was vulnerable to this emotion. And so he spoke it and spoke to it. Let me give you a quick example. Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous and do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, Joshua. Don't be afraid, Joshua. The Lord your God he'll go with you wherever you go. God speaks courage into Joshua's life. Why? Because he needed it. I think for too many of us, we think of encouragement the wrong way. I think too many of us think of encouragement as something that you do on the backside of something good. Too many of us, when we think of encouragement, we think of, I'm going to encourage you when you've done something good. I'm going to encourage you when you've gone over and beyond. If you don't believe this, just watch yourself, because you do it whether you realize it or not. That's when you're an encourager. That's when you utilize your encouragement. You encourage when you see good behavior. We do this with children. You know, if a child does something great, we rush in to encourage them. Great job! You know, it's phenomenal. You're awesome. What you're trying to do is you're trying to push them to keep doing good things, right? And see, biblically, time and time again, we see the exact opposite. Encouragement wasn't on the back side. Encouragement's on the front side. It was encouragement of, listen, you're going to need this. I'm encouraging you because of what you're about to face. Jesus did it with the disciples in the upper room. That was the very beginning of our first series, The Way Forward. He was giving them words of encouragement to keep pushing. And here, God is doing it in Joshua. He is giving him the encouragement of saying, Joshua, you're going to have to deal with some battles. You're going to have to deal with some rough days, and you're going to have some rough months, and you're going to have some walls that you're going to face. You're going to be discouraged. Let me speak courage into your life. So let me ask you this. Is this you? Are you discouraged? Do you need God to speak a word of encouragement over you? Because for some of us in this room, we're discouraged. We've lost hope. And others of us in this room, we don't even recognize the fact that we're discouraged. And can I tell you, if that's you, this is a dangerous place to be. And so what we're going to do for just a split second is let's talk about some of the symptoms of discouragement. I'll give them to you. The first one is this: frustration. Are you frustrated? If you are frustrated, can I tell you something? You might want to start looking at whether or not you're discouraged. One of the greatest forms of discouragement surfaces through frustration. When someone is discouraged, they start talking negatively. When someone is discouraged, they become irritable. You know any irritable people? When someone is discouraged, they become easily annoyed. Do you know any easily annoyed people? Does this look familiar? Some of you're married to people like this. You live with people like this. You work with people like this. They're constantly frustrated. They walk around irritated. They walk around annoyed. I'm telling you, if you push in a little bit, it is discouragement. If you can just recognize the idea and fact that you are discouraged. And what's interesting is the last thing you want to do is, when somebody is annoyed, is to walk up and be like, why are you so easily annoyed? That's annoying, isn't it? Why are you so irritable? Because of you. That's what you're going to say about it. And the reality is that's not true. You're discouraged. You're frustrated. And you've got this emotion going on, and it's a very clear sign of discouragement. The next is this: fatigue. Another is fatigue. Listen, when you are discouraged, it zaps your energy. It soaks up every bit of energy and strength you got. Listen, I'm telling you, if you feel tired and you feel wore out, you are physically and emotionally exhausted. And half the time, you're not even sure why. It's because you're discouraged. You know, this surfaced for me after the pandemic. You know, some of us, you know who you are. You're in a position, or maybe your family or your workplace. In my case, it's the church and all of those things that come with it. And during the pandemic, I felt good. And I was was pushing. And I had to keep feeling good. And I had to keep pushing. And I had to keep being positive. And I got through it. But on the backside of the pandemic, I was whipped. I was exhausted. I was discouraged. And there's a clinical name for this. It's called the sleeper effect. Some of you know it. And the sleeper effect is roughly 6 to 8 months after a crisis. After you've gone through some things at work. After you've gone through some things in a relationship with your children. When you've gone through a rough season. You got through it and you were strong and you were courageous and you kept pushing. And you were doing awesome. But then 6 to 8 months later, it hits you. All that energy, all of those efforts, it collides. And some of you know what this looks like. You've been busy being the rock for your family. You've been busy being the rock in that relationship. You've been busy being the rock in your crisis. And maybe you've got through it. But now you're absolutely exhausted and you don't know why. The relationship's okay or the career's okay. You got through that horrible season, but for some reason you're miserable and you're exhausted. It's because you're discouraged. It was delayed. You're fatigued by what you went through. Another symptom is this. It's failure. Failure. Now this one, some of us will be like, huh? Let me explain this one. Failure is very, very common one when it comes to discouragement, because failure replays this whole thing in my mind of, what could I have done differently? What could I have done differently to help them in their life? What can I have done differently to make this relationship look different? What can I have done differently with my job and my career? What could I have said that would have impacted their life differently, that would have made them not do the stupid things and make those horrible decisions? What could I have done? Could I have been a better wife? Could I have been a better husband? Could I have been a better father or a better mother? A better coworker? For some of us, this is where a lot of our discouragement falls. It's that we have tried so hard, but it didn't work. We have tried everything in us, all of our resources. We've read books, we've done this, we've done that. We have put forth hours, and we've been patient, and we've been kind, and we've been loving, but yet it's not working. And we feel like a failure because we're not seeing results. You couldn't please them. You couldn't be the one they wanted. You couldn't be what they needed. And where you are is all loss has been hope. Or all hope has been lost. You're discouraged and you feel like a failure. Identify this. Another symptom is fear. Fear is a symptom of discouragement. And fear is paralyzing. Fear can paralyze your way forward, because what happens is when you become afraid of the situation and the circumstances around you, it cripples your ability to keep moving. How many times have you been afraid to make a move because you don't know what's going to happen? Fear is being more aware. I'm going to put it this way. Fear is being more aware and maybe even more focused on the uncertainties. I'm going to say that again. Fear is being focused or more aware of all the uncertainties. That's what fear is. It's all the what ifs. It's all the that could happen, and this could happen, and maybe this is going to look that way. Can I tell you, fear oftentimes also is living out a false sense of confidence and security. And this is where a lot of us do. Where we fail to recognize just how fragile things are. Some of us we're good at that. We ignore the fact that things are very fragile. And others of us, that's all we do, is we focus on the fragile. All we do is look at how fragile circumstances are. Well, I can lose my job like that, so I'm terrified. I could lose all the money I had, and I'm terrified. The car could break down, I'm terrified. The house could crumble, I'm terrified. Some of us, that's all we focus on. The economy, the Washington, the government, it can fall apart, I'm terrified. Some of us, that's all we do, and we are discouraged and we're paralyzed because of the fear. And others of us, we don't even recognize how how fragile everything is. And here's the truth. Both are discouraging, and both are not a very good place to be in. One of us is worried about the true state of things, and the other of us is worried about the true state being revealed. Fear is not a very good place to be, and fear is very discouraging. Let me give you a couple more, and they don't begin with F. That had to be broken at some point. And the next one is this, criticism. Criticism is a very good form of discouragement. It is a very clear symptom of discouragement. Oh, the critic, do you know them oh too well? They have something negative to always say. You know, when they are being their oh so joyful self, can I tell you what they are being? They're being discouraged. They're discouraged. When they are negative and when they are nasty, there's no feeling of hope, and that's why they're that way. The Israelites were this way. They were the poster child. They were the poster child of discouragement. And the greatest symptom they showed us, it was criticism. The Bible says over and over again, the Israelites murmured and complained in the wilderness. It's what they did daily. God would do something great, and they would complain. I mean, He provided food from the sky, and it was like manna. That's what it's called. I don't even want any manna. I want a steak. God's feeding you, and you're going to complain. Oh, this desert is so hot. Yeah, it is. But you could be dead. You know, these things could go on and on and on. They murmured and complained. Why? Because they felt no hope and discouragement. Bitterness. Bitterness is another symptom. Oh, this one is, I could park here for a while, but we got too far to go. I'm going to ask you, are you bitter? Because if you peel back the onion of your bitterness, I guarantee you there's some discouragement. Joshua was discouraged. I guarantee you bitterness had to be in there a little bit, because as he's walking around for 40 years, it's their fault. All they had to do was listen. And he did his part. Some of you get that. This is you, because if they had just listened to you, they wouldn't be in the position they're in. Some of us walk around, if they had just listened to me, do you know how much better my life would be? If they had just listened to me, do you know how things would be different? I'm going to just talk for a second. It is discouraging and overwhelming to play out the what-if scenarios, isn't it? I'm talking to the head cases. If you're not a head case, you can sleep for about 5 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm going to talk to people like me, the head cases. It is exhausting and overwhelming playing out the what-ifs. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's called an alternative reality. Let's call it what it is. When we start going through these things of, if they had just done this, my life would look this way and not that way. If Dum Dum had made this decision instead of that decision, we wouldn't be in this scenario. And it takes us down this path of discouragement. And it's really hard to move forward when we are so busy being chained to the past. I want you to hear me say that again. It is really hard to move forward when you are chained to the past. And we are discouraged by the what-ifs and the what happened. Joshua is facing all kinds of discouragement. And so God encourages him to be courageous. And he points Joshua to where his strength and courage needs to come from. Look again, Joshua 1:9. For the Lord your God will be with you. He says, listen, I know you're discouraged, I know you're overwhelmed, so let me speak to where your courage and strength needs to come from. It needs to come from God, who is going to be with you always. And so, here's our first takeaway. Here's our first takeaway. I hope you're still with me. Our first takeaway is this. Your courage is only as good as what you put your confidence in. I'm going to say that again. Your courage to keep moving forward. Your courage and strength is only as good as what you put your confidence in. So here's my question to you. It's not on the screen behind me. It's just a question I hope you're going to ask yourself later. Where's my confidence? Where am I putting all of my confidence? God tells Joshua, don't be discouraged. I know that you're surrounded by dum-dums. I know you're surrounded by negative and nasty complaining people. I know that you are surrounded by frustration and fatigue and bitterness. I know all all these emotions that exist because of what you've gone through. But you can get through it because I'm with you. Be strong and courageous and keep pushing forward. Look at 5 and 9 in the first chapter. Look what God says. I will be with you. I will never, look at that word, I will never leave you, and I will never abandon you. I will be with you wherever you go. I will not fail you. I will not abandon you. I am with you to the very end. Don't be discouraged, God says. And God is saying this to you and me today. Don't be discouraged. I understand that these emotions are real. The fatigue, the bitterness, the frustration, all of these things. But take courage because He is with you. And so here it is. If your courage is only as good as where you've placed your confidence, so here's our second takeaway. If we can say that, if your courage is only as good as where you put your confidence, then this has to be true. Then discouragement, here it is an indication of misplaced confidence. If we just said this to be true, that our confidence is only as good as what we put it in, right? Our courage is only as good as where we place our confidence, then discouragement has to be an indication of misplaced confidence. And so, if we are discouraged, I'm telling you there is some misalignment and we need to realign our life. Too many times we put our confidence in the wrong things. We remember, we could go back 9 weeks ago where there was a walker right here. Too many of us put our confidence in the wrong things, and then we wonder why we can't walk. We wonder why we can't make it. It's because we've misplaced our confidence. And what happens is, when our confidence is tested, it doesn't hold up. And that's when the discouragement comes. Why couldn't I have made it? Why couldn't I get through this? Because you were leaning on the wrong thing. That's why you couldn't get through it. That's why you couldn't make it. You know, a survey was taken roughly 18 months ago among men. Fellas, you'll like this one. Ladies, you already know this. The survey was taken. And the age group that was asked was men between the ages of 20 and 65. 20 and 65. And here's the question. Fellas, very simple. Are you a genius? Great question. Are you a genius? Well, 5 out of 10 said yes. As a matter of fact, I am a genius. Thanks for asking. 5 out of 10 guys said yes. Realistically and statistically, do you want to know the real number to that? Statistically, 1 in 1,050, essentially. 1 in 1,000 is the best way to say it. 1 in 1,000 typically would be genius status. So 5 out of 10 men believe they're 1 in 1,000. I want you to think about that. 5 out of 10 dudes, that means in this room, some of you are already smiling, you're like, I know I'm a genius. You think you're 1 in 1,000. Now, why would 50% of men think that they're a genius? I'm thinking because they've never been tested. I'm thinking because they've never been tested. I mean, if the follow-up question was, are you a genius? Next question. Have you been tested? What would that look like? They'd be like, well, yeah. Yeah, I have, because I've been to Cracker Barrel. And there's this peg with a triangle. I got 2 pegs. So yeah, I'm a genius. I mean, realistically, this is kind of how the same thinking kind of comes around. But here's the thing. As long as they haven't been tested, they have a false sense of security. They have a false confidence. And for too many of us sitting in this room, this is where we are. We have this false confidence. And we have this false strength. Because the first moment we get tested, we fail, and then we're discouraged. We're frustrated, we're fatigued. we're bitter. How dare you question my geniusness? Yeah, that's a good word for you. How dare you? I think for too many of us, this is where we are. We put our confidence in the wrong things. And if you put your confidence in the wrong things, you will be discouraged. Some of us said in this room, you put your confidence in the government, and you put your confidence in this country, and you put your confidence in the political system, and if this is you, no wonder you're discouraged. Complete failure. All of it. And it will always be that way because it's flawed. It's flawed. God said it would be that way. God said it was, don't ever put your strength in all of that because it's imperfect. It's imperfect. Put your strength in me. That's why this country was founded on Him. That's the strength where it all comes together, and that's why He's blessed us. We are still a very blessed nation, whether we recognize it or not. And we can't put our faith and trust in this because it's going to make you discouraged. If you put your faith and trust in the economy, you're going to be discouraged because one day the economy looks good, the next day it doesn't. You put your faith and trust in the gas station. We saw how quickly that changed. The world lost its mind for like a week over gas. Remember the toilet paper thing? Some of us still put our faith and trust in toilet paper. You know, you got stacks in your garage. I know it's a big deal. You put your faith and trust in relationships. God said, don't do that. Because they're going to fail you. They don't put your faith and trust. They weren't meant to carry that load for you. They never were. Your health, you will be discouraged. Where do you place your confidence? In Joshua, the 4th chapter, God tells His people to do something to help them where they place their confidence. I promise you we're almost done. And we're out of here. Joshua 4, this is our key text. Good Lord. Verse 2. Choose 12 men, one from each tribe. Tell them to take 12 stones from the very place where the priests are standing in the middle of the Jordan. Carry them out and pile them up at a place where you are going to camp tonight. So God tells them, He says, listen, I want you to go out into the middle of the Jordan. Remember the water that was held up by an earth-shaking activity? Because God told them to keep walking, and the water eventually, He stopped it upstream, and they were walking on dry ground. He says, as you are walking across, I want you to go out to the middle, I want you to take some stones, and then I want you to take them back into the camp where you're going to be staying tonight, and I want you to build an altar. That's what He's telling them to do. I want you to go back there, and I want you to do this. Why? Because I want you to remember what I did for you. I want you to remember, in the middle of the impossible situation, what I did for you. I think, can I talk to somebody this morning? I think too many times you and I have a problem, and our problem is we want to rush to get to the other side way too quickly. We rush to get to the other side, but God wants us to remember what He does in the middle. Verse 6, it's not on the screen behind me, but in verse 6 He tells us why He told them to do this. He says, one day your children and your grandchildren are going to say, hey, what are those stones for? And you're look at them and be like, there's a time where God did the impossible. So I want you to take these stones with you. Those stones represent the moment where God did what God always does. I want you to see something in verse 9 and 10. I promise you, we're out of here in like 4 minutes. Look at verse 9. Joshua also set up another pile of 12 stones in the middle of the Jordan, at the place where the priests would carry the Ark of the Covenant were standing. And they all were there that day. They're all there this day. I want you to notice something. Joshua, in the very place where God said, go in the middle and get some stones and take them to the camp, he sets up in the middle of that Jordan an altar for God. He goes all over and beyond. He says, I want to set something up in the middle. And the Bible says it's there this day. Now what's interesting about this is that nobody is going to see those. Nobody's going to know that they're really other than God and Joshua. Yet, he does it anyways. He stops in the middle to do something to acknowledge Him. I want you to see verse 10. The priests were carrying the Ark of the Covenant, stood in the middle of the river, until all the Lord's commands were done, until they were carried out. Look at this. I love this part. I highlighted or underlined it. Meanwhile, the people hurried across the riverbed. I bet they did. I mean, they don't know how much longer that the water's going to be dammed up, 1,000 yards ahead. They don't know how long it's going to be that way. And so they're like, let's get out of here before something happens. Yet, Joshua stoops down in the middle to meet him. Can I tell you what God is saying to you and me this morning? Man, this is so good. And I'm so grateful that God speaks through His Word. The ever-changing message that never changes. It's a living and breathing thing. Every time you read it, you get something different. Can I tell you what God is speaking to us and what He's telling us? What He's saying to us in the latter part of these passages is, listen, don't be in such a hurry to get to the other side that you miss what God is wanting to do in the middle. Don't be in such a hurry to get to the other side of your situation. Don't be in such a hurry to get to the other side of this season, of this storm, of this moment that you are in, that you miss what God is wanting to do in the middle of your situation. Because listen, there are things that God can do in the middle. There are things that God wants you to experience in the middle that you can't experience on the other side. There is a presence, there is a power, there is an anointing, there is a peace, there is a power, there is a glory. There is His face and there is His presence in the middle that you just can't get on the other side of your situation. In the middle of this moment, in the middle of the discouragement, in the middle of the storm, in the middle of the crisis, if you will just experience it, you don't want to miss it. One of the greatest things you and I can do in the middle of our situation is collect some stones. Collect some stones. I'm done, and I may regret sharing this, but probably won't regret it. I don't care. I'll share it anyways. This is bonus. I've collected some stones over the years. They mean a lot. They're reminders. I was sitting at my desk the other night during vacation Bible school, and I was just looking around. I was like, there's a lot of stones in my office. I opened my drawer. There's a letter, handwritten from a lady. She gave it to me back in 2009. She didn't know what I was going through, but it came in the mail from Pennsylvania. Her daughter attended this church. And she wrote me this letter, and it was this letter thanking me, just saying, you have no idea the impact you've made in her life, and you have no idea the impact you've made on our life. Thank you. Thank you so much. And just goes on this whole thing. Now, what she didn't know was in that moment in 2009, I was going to quit. I was ready to leave the ministry. I was done. It gets tired. It gets exhausting sometimes. It gets frustrating. And I was in a season that had been going way too long. And I was starting to think, God, this is enough. I'm done. This is annoying. And literally, the very day that I seriously was thinking about doing something drastically different, I walk in, there's an envelope on my desk, came in the mail, and there's this letter. And all she said was, keep doing what you're doing. You have no idea the impact you're making. And I'm like, I will always hold this. And the days that you don't feel like you're making a difference, go read that. It's a stone every time I see it. I don't have to read it. I know what it says. It reminds me. There's a picture on my desk. There's lots of them, but there's a certain picture there. It's of Preston. He's a baby. He's very young, and he's laying there, and he's got one of my watches on. It's one of my favorite pictures. And I look at that picture, and it reminds me of something. What does it remind me of? It reminds me, it makes me remember of just how powerful our God is and how His timing works. We were told we couldn't have kids. And when I look at that picture, I'm like, you guys don't have a clue about anything because of who our God is. I wanted things to happen way before that happened. That's why the watch is there. God works on a different time schedule. And every time I see that picture, I think, what is impossible with man? I can't tell you how many times I've grabbed that on my desk when somebody's bawling in my office because their world's turned upside down. What is impossible with you and me is possible with him. We couldn't have kids here. We got a bundle of them. You can borrow what we want. I've got a literal rock on my desk. It was given to me 21 years ago by a beautician. And on it says peace. That woman, I promise you, has never thought twice about giving me that rock. I remember when she gave it to me. She was so nonchalant about it. She was picked it up. She was cleaning out a desk. And she goes, "Here, Jason, take this. And always remember that he is with you. And he is the source of your peace." Now, this woman has no idea, but she is one of the main reasons why I stepped into ministry. One of my biggest, I'm not getting into this, take too long. One of my biggest reservations was going into ministry was because church people. I grew up in the church. I saw how they were. Y'all know how they are, don't you? And this woman was always faithful. Faithful to God, faithful to my parents, faithful to my family. I remember there was a time where I didn't have money. We didn't have money for me to get some shoes. You know, the ministry is a little different back in the day. And this woman picks me up, and I don't know where we're going, and she takes me shopping. And she got me the hottest Michael Jordans ever. And some cool shoes and some pants and stuff. But it doesn't matter. The thing was, is every time I look at that, I remember, she's right. You're doing this for him. He's your peace. He's your source. And there's something he promised me a long time ago, and this is, I'm really getting deep. He always told me, "I will always give you one, Jason." And he has done just that. And that's what that rock represents. I'll never leave you alone, Jason. And he hasn't. He's always given me, as the Bible would call, an armor bearer. Somebody who literally I can go and throw my junk on. And that rock represents that for me. Why am I talking about? I could keep going all day. I've got stones for Megan and I. I've got stones for the worst of the worst that make it the best of the best. I'm asking you, pick up some stones. Take some time in the middle of your situation. Look around your house. Look around and pick some things up. And remember, I remember God did this. I remember when she gave me this. I remember when he gave me that. Oh, I remember that season of life. And he brought me through that. He's going to bring you through this too. Pick up some stones. Communion. We've got 2 stones. 2 reminders. He says, I want you to pick them up. And what does he say? Do this and remember me. Think on me. Think about the authority I have, the power I have, the grace I have, the love I have for you. Think about what I did for you when you didn't deserve it. The mistakes you've made, guess what? I've forgotten because I love you and I wash them away. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about my body when you take the bread. That's a stone. I want you to think about my blood that was shed for you. That's a stone. Let's collect some stones. And let's prepare ourselves for communion. Let's think on it. Father God, Lord, I thank you today that you love us enough to have us hesitate in the middle. Lord, I thank you that you love us enough that you give us stones. Lord, that you give us some reminders. Lord, we need them. Lord, we have lots of negative reminders. Lord, we drive by a place and it reminds us of that horrible thing we did. We see a person and it reminds us of a horrible season. Lord, may we look for the positives, the powerful stones that remind us of your goodness, your grace, your mercy. Lord, today may we pick up 2 of the most powerful stones that ever existed. The stones that represent your blood, the stones that represent your body that changed everything for us. Lord, when we get discouraged, we misplace our confidence. Lord, may we feel it in this morning where we be confident in you. Lord, right now as we take communion, may we just for a moment not be distracted. Lord, this is one of the things you tell us when we take communion. Don't do it in an unworthy way. Lord, don't let our minds drift. Don't let the enemy distract us. Lord, no, let us be focused. Because if we do so, we will leave this place very different than we came. So he called the disciples together, and they were in the upper room, and he was giving them words that they were going to need to push forward, so they wouldn't be discouraged. And he gives them some stones, and he says, I want you to take this cup, and I want you to take this bread, and I want you to do this in remembrance of me. And so he takes the bread, and he gives thanks, and he breaks it. And he says these words. He says, this is my body. It is given for you. I want you to take this in remembrance of me. And then he takes the cup. And he says this cup is, it's the new covenant. It's the new agreement. It's the new deal. It changes everything. Between God and all people. An agreement that is confirmed by my blood, which is poured out for you. Lord, I thank you and I praise you today for your goodness and for your mercy. I thank you today that you brought us here, and I thank you today that you have met us right where we are. Lord, every one of us was here for a reason. Not one of us was here by accident. And that's awesome to know this. To know that you met us right where we are. This wasn't by chance. Lord, you brought us here, and these words were ordained by you. Lord, may we experience you in a mighty way. Lord, don't let us be in such a rush. Don't let us try to hurry across the season that we're in, that we miss what you're trying to do in the middle. Lord, may we overcome the fatigue. May we overcome the frustration. May we overcome the fear. May we overcome the failures. Lord, may our courage and strength be placed in you. You're the source of it all. And you're the only way through. Lord, we thank you and we praise you today for all that you've done, all that you're going to do.